Hi everyone, welcome to Pause Alchemy of Women. I'm Maria. Pardon my strange warehouse background. I'm not sure if you know, I have a museum of antique cars at my house. Anyway, today I wanted to come on and talk about anxiety and panic and a little touch on what that means for menopause. So I'm just going to start out with taking a couple of deep breaths. That's one of the best ways for me to get into this calm state, the parasympathetic state, and it's something that's always available to us, so I feel like it's really important. So anxiety, the difference between anxiety and panic is what we're going to first talk about. So honestly, anxiety and panic, it's kind of semantics as to what is different about the two of them. But anxiety seems to be more something that comes from an actual event. So maybe you're anxious about work. Maybe you're anxious about something in your personal life. Maybe you're anxious about talking on a Facebook Live podcast. And so it tends to also, it has the same worry, unease, fear. It can be an overthinking. And it tends to kind of get more intense over time, but it's actually in a response to an actual event or feeling. Whereas panic attacks, even though they can feel the same, they often are more intense, although they don't have to be if you're having an anxiety attack. But panic seems to be more from nowhere, right? So you're just going about your day, you're having a stroll in the park, and then all of a sudden, maybe your heart starts beating really fast, you start sweating maybe, and panic attacks tend to be more physical, where you feel like maybe you're even having a heart attack, maybe you feel like you're dying, and you can even kind of detach from reality of like, you don't even know what the hell is going on, but something feels like you have this threat. And sorry, I feel like my internet may have gone out there for a second. So although they're very similar, it doesn't matter which one it is, because the tools that you would use can be similar. Because anxiety, although it starts with a perceived threat, the mind starts circling to where it's not exactly the threat, maybe it's you're late for work, and that's not really a threat necessarily. Maybe it's a threat to your job, but it's not necessarily a threat to your health. And so one of the things that happens, especially with panic attacks, is that you can also have hot flashes. So if you are a perimenopausal woman, that adds just an extra layer of discomfort and unpleasantness, so I'll just call it, to this whole process. And so you can kind of go, you can have a hot flash, and that can kind of cause a panic attack, or you can have a panic or an anxiety attack, and that causes a hot flash. So the combination is not ideal. And so it's interesting because, perimenopause is an interesting topic. Well, especially to me, of course, as you know, I like to talk about it, but it's not a disease. It's not some sort of thing to be cured, right? But from, hundreds of years ago, that's where, if you're not familiar with this, that the term hysteria, for instance, which I'm pretty sure was talking about menopause, like a hysterical woman, right? So the word hysteria actually comes from the Greek word for uterus. So I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but it's like our uteruses are making us crazy. It's kind of the idea, which, sometimes I do feel like my uterus is making me crazy. But that term hysteria, to talk about a woman who, is kind of out of control, comes from the word for uterus. So that's just a little side note. But to go back to the heart palpitations, that is also one of the things that is common, especially in perimenopause. And so heart palpitations are common because when you start to get lower in estrogen, it kind of our endocrine system, our hormonal system is grand and complicated. And even just, you kind of need to go to an endocrinologist. Hi, Abby. You need to go to an endocrinologist to really get some answers, because regular doctors aren't even well versed in our hormonal system. So, sorry, I'm getting off track because I'm fired up about this topic. So heart palpitations are common with this drop in estrogen. But that actually comes later in menopause, in perimenopause. So at the beginnings of perimenopause, this is something that is kind of misunderstood by a lot of people. When we first start going into the perimenopause, our hormones are actually just fluctuating. So maybe estrogen is lower, maybe it's higher. In the beginning of perimenopause, it's quite often higher. And so that, with the imbalance with progesterone, can really have effect on our moods and really have an effect on anxiety, panic, depression, and just mood swings in general. So you imagine, your body is supposed to be kind of cruising along at this balanced hormone energy, and instead it's like this. So you imagine what that would do to your moods. So your moods are very linked to your hormones. So if they are fluctuating, then you're naturally going to fluctuate. And, there's a lot, in addition to just the hormonal parts of what's going on during perimenopause, and this can be useful to women or men who are not in any stages of having any hormonal fluctuations or having perimenopause, or maybe you're past menopause. But one key piece of this is really feeling your feelings, right? So now, this is not to say if there is an actual mental health issue that you're going through, that can be very serious, and you really should make sure you have a lot of support and seek professional help if there's something really going on, or if you feel your anxiety is really linked to depression, for instance, and you need a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Please take care of yourself. But I'm talking about things that are not perhaps as deep. But even if it is, feeling your feelings about whatever is going on with you. So if you have anxiety about something in your life, what are you feeling? What does this anxiety come from? Do you feel trapped? Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel life is passing you by? Whatever it is, feeling those feelings and really focusing on processing your anger, your grief, especially around perimenopause. So, some of it sucks. Some of it is crappy. And it's like, why do I have to have all these issues hormonally, over my lifetime, and so feeling those feelings, not squashing down the feelings about getting older or what that makes you feel like, if that's an issue for you, noticing how you feel and kind of sitting with that. So sorry, my phone fell. That's why I'm in this weird space of my antique car museum. I have someone working in my house today. And so just some things that can help. Like I said, if you are experiencing intense panic attacks, anxiety attacks, if you're not able to function, if you have depression, please, I am not a doctor in any way, so please seek some sort of support, some professional help. Don't do this alone. It's not necessary to do this alone. So do that for yourself, of course. But some things, if things are more mild, what can help? So, I'm a big proponent of calming breathing, of meditation, of yoga. Those things really, for me, I find that they work as a preventative. If you're in a panic attack and you're like, I'm just going to breathe, or let me meditate, it's not going to work, right? Maybe breathing, if you can get yourself to a place where you can hold your heart and just take a deep breath. It kind of gets that energy moving, or shaking your limbs out, something like that. But, you know, I use those more as a preventative to keep myself in a space of a space of not getting to a stressful, anxious place. Exercise is amazing, you know, whatever that means to you. My friend Amy and I used to call them rage hikes. When I lived in California, there was some hikes that were very uphill, and when we were pissed off or feeling anxious or feeling upset, we would hike as fast as we could uphill, and we call them rage hikes. So I find that to help both preventatively and when you feel anxiety building. Not perhaps maybe when you're in a panic attack, if you can't get there, I understand. But as you feel your energy coming up to feeling an anxious situation, and really connecting with your body on a regular basis. So I've talked about embodiment a lot of times before, but really checking in, because I find that anytime I'm in an anxious place, you know, all of my energy is up. My friend Abby talks about me being up in my head all the time, which is true. So you're up here, you're thinking, my job, my partner, all the things. And so if you can bring yourself either with deep breathing or really connecting your feet to the earth, maybe you walk around outside, bringing yourself back into your body can really be a calming force. Another tool, of course, is yoga nidra, which I love. And I talked about a lot of this on the stress podcast a couple of weeks ago. But this anxiety that can be experienced in perimenopause is something that I have never experienced before. So I decided to do this podcast this week because I've been having like what feels like mini panic attacks. And that is not something, you know, I'm 46 and it's not something that I've ever really experienced before. And I know some of you have before, and I really sympathize with you now. But really getting into feeling connected to yourself, knowing when that is coming, knowing when you're overthinking and bringing yourself to a up in your head anxious space, to bring yourself back kind of early on to let it not spiral out of control. I mentioned before, you know, I am pro therapy, even though I'm a coach and mentor and a therapist. But, you know, dealing with menopause can be hard. Maybe there's marital issues, maybe there's other issues, stress, and don't be afraid to seek help by way of a therapist. That can be really helpful for anxiety and panic. Even potentially hormone replacement therapy, which if you've watched my podcast before, you'll know that that's not, you know, I'm an herbalist. That's not my direct route to anything. However, for some women that can help. So if you're really struggling, that can be something that could be a solution for you, but that is not my wheelhouse. And finally, you know, well, not finally, I have lots more to say. Community, you know, we've spoken before about, especially if your anxiety is linked to perimenopause or menopause or getting older or anything involving that, having changes in your body, having changes in your moods, really having a base of community of other women who know what's happening with you, who understand like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety that I've never felt before. And have you had that, you know, and to kind of get a little baseline of, it isn't just you. It isn't that you're crazy or something. It's can be very linked to hormonal issues or the emotions around getting older and going through menopause. And so having a group of women that you can speak to is super important in my mind. Of course, I am a coach and mentor, so I do private coaching. I also, in October, will have a group coaching about menopause coming up. And I also do herbal consultations. So those are some tools that could help you. I'd be happy to talk to anyone on a call to see if that's a good fit. And then, of course, you know I love herbs. So we talked about this on the stress podcast, but things like chamomile, blue vervain, passion flower, lemon balm, lavender, which all can be used in tinctures, teas, and other preparations. You can check back in with my stress podcast to hear about those in detail. They are really amazing at calming the system in a way that's really gentle and where it doesn't add another overwhelming thing to your plate, which often is why we have anxiety or stress or panic, right? And the final thing I'll talk about, on Instagram, I follow these two women. One is Brooke Weinst, and she does actually, her focus is parenting, but it's neurosensory parenting, it's called. And she's really helped me. She has a lot of short videos to talk about what sort of sensations when you're overwhelmed and what that feels like, and what you can kind of do to calm yourself in the moment, and what kind of type of personality you have and how those things are all linked. So I found her to be really interesting. And there's also Nicole LaPera, who's a holistic psychologist. That's what she calls herself. And together, both of them have like amazing videos, not to get you away from my videos, but I found them both to be really helpful because I am very highly sensitive. And with perimenopause, I've become more sensitive to outside stimulation, whether it's noises or smells or my annoying partner or whatever input is coming in has been really more intense. And one thing that I will leave you with is this idea of bilateral music. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They use it in EMDR, which is, let me read it, eye movement desensitization, I can't say it, desensitization, desensitizing, and reprocessing. Oh my God, that's such a hard word. Try and say it. Don't make fun of me. Try to say it. EMDR. It's something that they use in therapy, and I'm not trained in that or anything, but it is something that's been found really helpful to heal PTSD, stress, panic disorders, any sort of unhealed trauma. It has to do with your eyes moving back and forth, and it is a way that your brain responds in this kind of, I'm going to call it a magical way, to release the pain of past traumas and things like that. So one of the things they often call bilateral music EMDR music because they're often used together. And the idea of bilateral music, it is not binaural beats. It's a different thing. So bilateral music is the bass of the music goes back and forth. You're supposed to use headphones. That's the way it works properly. And the beat goes like, like from one ear to the other. And I only just recently discovered it because of Brooke Weinst, and I love it so much. I was having heart palpitations, and so I don't know if that was from stress. I don't know if it was from nothing. I don't know if it was from estrogen fluctuation, but I started to feel terrible, and I was having, and I'll just share with you here on the Facebook and the YouTube, my father died of a heart attack when I was very young. So any sort of heart things, I have a little bit of like extra stress around. And so I was like, I am having a heart attack. And I put this music in, and I kid you not, it was like less than 5 minutes and my whole system calmed down. So I just put headphones in, listened to the music. You can listen to it before bed. It's amazing. So in the comments, I'm going to put a couple of links. I don't get anything from them. It's music I like. So I found 2 that I like, and I'm sure there's many, many more. And so I leave you with that. And if you would like to talk more about anything specific that I've talked about today, if you'd like to hear more about it, I'm honestly new to the anxiety and panic world, but I've always been so sensitive that I can really empathize with the situation that you can go through, and especially when it comes with the extra stresses of maybe panic and then maybe hot flashes. It's an extra load on women that is hard. And so I'm here for you to talk about any of those things. If anyone has had any experiences with anxiety and panic and they would like to share what has helped them, maybe that can help someone else, I'd be happy to hear about that in the comments. So that's all I have for you today, and I'd love to hear what you think. So thank you so much.